Ever get into one of those discussions where you just think, what is even the point of this?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're going to take a deep dive into that today
Okay.
with a Q&A all about why we even have discussions and debates in the first place.
Interesting.
Sometimes it can feel like you're just banging your head against a wall.
Yeah.
But in this deep dive, we're going to uncover something like that.
Each one of those reasons has its own purpose.
So, but how does this actually play out in real life?
Right.
It's not like we're going around saying, like, I'm engaging in truth-seeking now.
Exactly.
Before we start talking to somebody.
No, and that's what's so fascinating about these categories.
Okay.
They're not just for, those formal debates.
Right.
These are woven into our everyday conversations.
Interesting.
Take problem solving, for instance.
Okay.
You might be, debating with your family about where to go on vacation. Or, you're hashing out a project plan with your team at work.
Right.
It's all about trying to find a solution.
So even those just like casual back and forth that we have can actually fall into one of these categories.
Absolutely. And when we become aware of these underlying reasons, it can totally change the way that we approach those conversations. Like understanding that we're often trying to achieve something beyond just like winning the argument, it can lead to more productive and satisfying interactions.
Definitely. But let's be honest. Sometimes those conversations feel more like a fight than a productive debate.
Oh, for sure.
So what's the line between the two?
Right.
And how can we make sure that we stay on the right side of it?
Well, the source makes this really clear distinction.
Okay.
And it all comes down to the intent and the approach.
Got it.
So in a constructive debate, you're aiming for understanding and a potential solution, even if you disagree, right?
Right.
But a fight, on the other hand, is often about winning, dominating, or even just venting frustration.
So it's not about, like, avoiding disagreement altogether.
No, not at all.
Because, I mean, let's face it, disagreements are going to happen.
They're inevitable, yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's about how we disagree.
Okay.
That's what matters. Respect, reason, and open-mindedness.
Right.
Those are key.
So, for example, imagine that you're having a conversation about politics.
Oh, boy.
It's notorious for, like, sparking these heated debates.
For sure.
So instead of resorting to, like, personal attacks, try actively listening to the other person's point of view and asking them questions to clarify. Like, you're genuinely trying to understand where they're coming from.
Like you actually care.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so important.
Active listening, though.
Yeah.
I feel like that is so much easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you really disagree with somebody.
Yeah.
It takes practice. But just think about a time when somebody really listened to you, even if they didn't agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
It makes you feel heard.
Exactly. That's the power of it.
Right.
It creates a space for genuine understanding to emerge.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It seems like that's really the ultimate goal here.
Understanding.
Yeah,
It's like the source says, debate is a journey.
Oh.
And understanding is the destination.
I like that.
It might be a winding path, with detours and unexpected obstacles along the way.
Right.
But the goal is to reach a point where both sides feel like they've been heard.
Okay.
And their perspectives have been considered.
Can we be real for a second, though?
Sure.
Isn't there, like, often a bit of self-interest mixed in with our desire for understanding? Like, maybe we're hoping to change the other person's mind or, get something out of the conversation for ourselves.
Yeah, and the source actually touches upon that. It's like this hidden layer beneath the surface.
Interesting.
We might be seeking understanding,
Yeah.
but there's often a personal stake involved, whether we're conscious of it or not.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, so, let's say you're debating with a coworker about a project. You might be hoping to influence the final decision in a way that benefits you. Right.
So how do we navigate that?
That's a good question.
How do we know when somebody is genuinely seeking understanding versus trying to manipulate the conversation?
Yeah, for their own gain.
That's where things get really tricky. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore those hidden motives and how to identify those red flags.
I'm ready.
Because once you become aware of these dynamics,
yeah,
you can navigate those tricky conversations more effectively.
I'm looking forward to it. So let's talk about those red flags.
Okay.
You mentioned there are ways to spot when someone isn't really trying to understand in a conversation.
Right.
What should we be looking out for?
one of the biggest giveaways is a lack of active listening.
Okay.
It's more than just hearing the words.
Right.
It's about truly absorbing what the other person is saying.
So how can we tell if someone is really listening?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Let's say you're explaining something important to a friend.
Are they making eye contact?
Okay.
Are they asking questions to make sure they understand?
Right.
Or are they just kind of waiting for their turn to speak, maybe even interrupting you or changing the subject?
Oh, yeah.
Those are some signs that they might not be fully engaged in the conversation.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's like they're more focused on what they're thinking than what you're actually saying.
Exactly.
And that can lead to like misunderstandings and frustration, I bet.
Oh, absolutely. Active listening involves, reflecting back what you've heard to make sure you're both on the same page.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging the other person's perspective, even if you don't necessarily agree with it.
So active listening is a big one.
Huge.
What other red flags should we be watching out for?
Well, the source also talks about the use of, emotionally charged language.
Okay.
Or even personal attacks.
Oh, right.
When someone resorts to name-calling or insults or just inflammatory rhetoric, It's a clear sign that they're not approaching the conversation with respect or a genuine desire for understanding.
It's like they're trying to shut down the conversation rather than have a meaningful exchange.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing the difference between, attacking the person versus addressing the actual issue at hand.
Right, yeah.
Healthy debate requires a willingness to consider different perspectives, even if they challenge our own beliefs.
It's almost like choosing to build a bridge instead of a wall.
I like that.
Yeah.
And building that bridge of understanding can lead to some pretty amazing outcomes.
Okay.
Which brings us back to those hidden benefits.
Right. Let's dig into those a little bit more.
Sure.
Can you give us some concrete examples of how pursuing understanding can actually lead to good things?
Oh, definitely. Well, think about a situation where you have two people that are negotiating a business deal, right?
Okay.
If they both come to the table with a genuine desire to understand each other's needs and priorities, they're so much more likely to find a solution that benefits both parties.
Interesting.
It's not about one person winning and the other losing.
Right.
It's about finding common ground and creating a win-win situation.
So understanding can actually lead to better deals.
Absolutely.
And more successful collaborations.
For sure.
I like that.
And it's not just in the business world.
Where else?
Think about conflicts in personal relationships, like between couples or friends.
Yeah.
When they're able to truly understand each other's feelings, perspectives, it can actually deepen their connection.
Interesting.
And lead to, more effective communication.
It's like understanding becomes the key to unlock empathy and compassion.
Exactly.
That's cool.
And then, even on a societal level, imagine a community that's facing a complex challenge, like environmental pollution, or social inequality.
Yeah, those are big ones.
If people with different backgrounds and different viewpoints are willing to engage in respectful dialogue and truly listen to each other, they might actually uncover innovative solutions that wouldn't have been possible without that shared understanding.
So understanding isn't just about avoiding arguments.
No.
It's a powerful tool for positive change in the world.
I think so.
That's incredible.
It's about recognizing the value of diverse perspectives and then leveraging those differences to actually find creative solutions and build a better future.
This is all very inspiring.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, it can feel a little bit overwhelming.
I get that.
Like, how do we actually put this into practice in our own lives?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And you know what? It might seem daunting.
Yeah.
But it really starts with cultivating a mindset of curiosity and open-mindedness.
Curiosity and open-mindedness. I like that.
Yeah.
But what does that look like practically?
Okay, well, one simple but powerful technique is to practice paraphrasing.
Okay.
So when someone is sharing their thoughts or their feelings with you, try summarizing what you've heard back to them in your own words.
Okay.
This shows them that you're paying attention.
Right.
And it helps make sure that you're understanding them correctly.
So it's like saying, okay, what I'm hearing you say is this.
Yeah.
And putting in your own words.
Put in your own words, exactly.
That seems like a good way to avoid misunderstandings and make sure you're both on the same page.
Definitely. And it also gives the other person a chance to clarify, right?
Oh, okay.
If you've missed something or if you've interpreted their words incorrectly.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
What are some other strategies we can use to become better listeners and better communicators?
Well, another powerful technique is to ask open-ended questions.
Okay.
So instead of asking questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no, try asking questions that invite the other person to elaborate, to share their perspective a bit more.
Got it.
And to just kind of delve deeper into their thoughts and feelings.
So instead of asking, are you upset about this?
Right.
You might ask, how are you feeling about this situation?
Exactly. Open-ended questions just encourage a more nuanced and insightful conversation.
Yeah.
It allows you to gain a deeper understanding of the other person's point of view.
Those are some good tools to add to our communication toolbox.
I agree.
What about, though, those times when we're in a conversation and it's starting to feel heated or unproductive?
Right.
How can we, de-escalate the situation and bring it back to a place of understanding?
That's a crucial skill.
Yeah.
And it often requires a conscious effort to shift our mindset. One effective technique is to try to focus on finding common ground.
Okay.
Even in the midst of disagreement, there are usually areas where you and the other person share some level of agreement or understanding.
So it's about looking for those points of connection.
Exactly.
Those shared values, those shared goals.
Yes.
Even if they seem small at first.
Absolutely. Because by highlighting those areas of agreement, you create a more collaborative atmosphere.
Right.
Less adversarial, right?
Less us versus them.
Yeah, it's a reminder that you're not enemies. Yeah. You're just two people with different perspectives trying to navigate a complex issue.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Finding common ground, focusing on shared goals. These are all really good strategies for de-escalating conflict and building those bridges of understanding.
Right.
What about those times when you feel like the other person is just not interested in having a productive conversation at all?
Right.
What do we do then?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's important to recognize that, we can't force someone to engage in good faith. Sometimes the best course of action is to just disengage from the conversation.
And just walk away.
No, walk away, yeah.
So it's okay to say hey, I'm not feeling heard or respected right now.
Yeah.
I need to take a break from this conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's important to set boundaries and protect your own well-being.
Right.
We don't have to subject ourselves to conversations that are draining or disrespectful or just unproductive.
It's easy to feel like we have to engage in every single argument or debate that comes our way.
But sometimes the most powerful choice is to just walk away and preserve your own peace of mind.
This has been so insightful. I feel like we've covered so much ground here.
Yeah, we have.
So before we wrap up, what are your final thoughts on the power of understanding?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that understanding isn't just a passive state of being.
Okay.
It's an active process of engaging with the world, with others, and even with ourselves.
That's really beautiful.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's a commitment to growth.
But like with any journey, there's going to be some challenges.
Of course there will be challenges. And that's actually what we're going to explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Awesome.
We'll talk about how to navigate those challenges and equip you with some practical tips for putting the power of understanding into practice.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into the power of understanding.
We've been exploring the motivations behind our conversations.
Right, and even how to spot those tricky situations where someone's maybe not being totally genuine.
It's like we've been creating this map of communication, highlighting all the best routes and those potential hazards along the way.
Exactly, and I feel like we're ready to tackle those challenges now.
All right.
So what are some strategies for navigating those conversations where understanding seems like it's just out of reach?
Well, the source emphasizes this really important point.
Okay.
It says that pursuing understanding can have both positive and negative consequences.
We've been focusing a lot on the benefits.
We have.
But you're saying it's important to be aware of the potential downsides as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're talking about the possibility of manipulation or hidden agendas.
Exactly. Somebody might seem like they're trying to understand, but really they're trying to steer the conversation in a direction that benefits them.
It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Kind of, yeah.
So how do we protect ourselves from that?
Okay, well...
How can we tell the difference between someone who's being genuine and someone who's not?
This is where critical thinking comes in.
Okay.
We need to analyze the information, consider how credible the source is.
Okay.
Look for inconsistencies, biases, things like that.
So it's almost like we need to become detectives.
I like that.
Examine the evidence.
Yeah.
And figure out the motives behind the words.
That's a great way to think about it.
Well,
ask yourself, what are they assuming here? Who benefits from this perspective?
Right.
What information might be missing?
Those are really good questions to ask.
I think so.
But critical thinking can be hard sometimes.
It can. Oh, yeah.
Especially when we're like emotionally invested in the topic.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely a skill that takes practice.
So how do we get better at it?
Well, one way is to make sure you're exposed to a variety of different viewpoints.
Okay.
Even ones that challenge your own beliefs.
That can be tough.
It can be, but it helps you to develop a more well-rounded perspective.
So you're saying step outside of our comfort zones a little bit?
Yeah.
Engage with those ideas that might make us feel a little bit uncomfortable at first?
Yeah, because it's in those moments of discomfort that we often learn the most, you know?
It's like stretching a muscle.
It is.
Might feel a little weird at first,
Yeah.
but it makes you stronger in the end.
Exactly.
I like that.
So we've talked about some of the challenges,
right.
But let's go back to the core idea here for a minute.
Okay.
The power of understanding. Why is it so crucial to strive for understanding?
Yeah, even when it's tough.
Yeah, even when it feels impossible.
The source reminds us that understanding is a journey, not a destination.
It's about building connections, you know?
Yeah.
Bridging those divides that separate us. Finding common ground, even when we disagree.
I like that.
It's recognizing the inherent value in each person's perspective, even if it's different from our own.
It's like we're all these pieces of a puzzle.
Yeah.
And understanding helps us to see how all those pieces fit together.
I love that.
And when we come to a conversation wanting to understand, we open ourselves up to new possibilities, new insights, a deeper connection with the people around us.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
I agree.
I feel like I've got all these new tools and new ways of thinking about communication.
Good. I'm glad.
Any last words of wisdom for our listeners before we wrap up?
I would just say, remember that the pursuit of understanding is an ongoing process.
Okay.
It's not about reaching some perfect state of enlightenment.
Right.
It's about embracing the journey, the challenges, and the growth that come along with seeking those deeper connections and that more nuanced understanding of the world.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, on that note, dear listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring the power of understanding in your own lives.
It's worth it.
Embrace those tough conversations.
Yes.
Ask thought-provoking questions.
For sure.
Never stop looking for those aha moments.
Exactly.
Until next time, happy deep diving.